Hey, everybody. Welcome to Art Fight Podcast. I'm Joe Nolan. I'm here with Brian Siskin. Brian, I believe this is episode 98 of the Art Fight Podcast. Am I right about that?
It's true. It's all true.
It's if it's not 98, it's 97. I don't think we're 99 yet because I think we wouldn't be questioning. We would know that important number that we're coming on next week. We've actually been planning some stuff really well. Today, we actually probably experienced the worst technical difficulties we've ever had on the show. Brian, thank you for righting the ship and getting us headed back in the right trajectory, getting all the sailors on board this week. I can't tell you how happy we are. A last-minute guest, an impulsive, fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy who most of you are already familiar with, a good friend of the show, making his third appearance, more than anyone ever on our show. Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Robin Black. How's it going, Robin?
Good. Cool. I'm excited to be the only three. Although I'm kind of pissed off. Like, why don't you guys just jam somebody in so I can be like number 100? Jam somebody in.
Maybe we'll get you. Maybe we'll get you in. Maybe we'll get you back in 2 episodes and get you on the 100.
Yeah, I want to be 100.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, ask and you shall receive. That is the way. That is the way of the MMA gods. Sometimes it's not the way of the MMA gods. Robin, one of the reasons why this is a good week to have you on is because earlier this week I was on a little website that I like to call Fighters Only, and Fighters Only is a website, a magazine that organizes the World MMA Awards every year. No surprise, you've been nominated for Best MMA Analyst yet again. I yet again voted for you, so you're welcome for that. You're welcome. You're welcome. I wouldn't vote for anyone else who didn't inspire this podcast as much as you have. And I thought it would be a good time, just because there's lots of stuff on the MMA Twitter and all sorts of things, people talking about the awards and, what do you think about these various things? So I thought it might be a fun time to talk about that. Have you looked at the awards and checked out the ballot at all?
A little bit. I haven't looked at kind of all the fights and thought about that yet. It's really cool though. Like, I would totally be lying if I said that I didn't get super stoked when I saw that. Like, I literally, my wife was in the garden. I was like, fuck, that's so cool. Like, I felt so good. And I wouldn't have thought that I would. First of all, like, how people, you are nominated by your peers. Right. So there's, I don't know if it's 50, I don't know if it's 100, I don't know if it's 80, I don't know what the number is, but it goes out to coaches, fighters, people who work in fighting, stakeholders in the field, and they nominate people. They make a list of people. So that, to me, to think that like Mike Brown or Duke Rufus or some high level fighter or whatever said Robin Black should be on this list, like, that's fucking cool. Yeah. That's real. That's real, and that means a lot to me. It really does. I don't think there's kind of any chance I could possibly win, and I don't say that out of humility, although I just don't. I was gonna take that somewhere, but it's not out of that. It's that part of the reality of the world you live in is how many people do you affect. Daniel Cormier or whoever on that list might have 3, 4, 5 million followers who love them. I've got a couple 100,000 humans who like my weird shit. So you can't compete with that. But the idea, and people say this all the time, they'll be like, oh, it's just an honor to be nominated. But it's fucking cool. Like, these are real people that are really do meaningful shit in the space, and they're like, that guy's work, I like that guy's work. And that's really cool.
I think it's a thing too where I think to strike out in your own direction with such conviction in whatever it is you do, whether it's analyzing or fighting or music or anything else, I think that when you strike out in your own direction, you spend so much time sort of bolstering and reinforcing yourself of and for yourself, just to sort of have the momentum to carry out a vision or to do anything, and you kind of pre-program yourself to not give a shit about what this person says or what that person says, and fuck everybody, like, I don't care. And then you have this, you get sort of slapped in the back of the head to be reminded, like, people actually appreciate it, and you can be awarded something for it, and it's like, oh right, I can care about that in a way it's healthy.
And you're also like, you realize sometimes you lie to yourself, like the punk rocker in us that grew up, like, we're like, I don't give a fuck what the man says about my work. I'm doing it for its own reason. And I think I believe that. But then the morning you see that and you're like, holy fuck, oh shit, I was lying. I did care. I did care. And I really think it's important, really important now, to care minimally. Like, the less you care, about what other people think of your work, the freer you will be. And you want that to be as pure as possible. That's something you seek, and it's something you try to cultivate and you try to create, and it's a superpower. If you don't give up, because if you're going to do anything different ever, you're going to go through shitty. You're going to go from somewhat acceptable to the mainstream because you're kind of within the realm of what people are accustomed to. And then if you're going to end up somewhere good, that's different. You got to go through everyone hates your shit for a while. There's no other route. You must go through that. You know, it's like you want to grow out of perm, right? You got a perm, you want to grow out of perm.
It's going to be
look
bad.
Shitty. It's going to be bad. That's part of the process. Like, you have to suck for a while, or you have to it's a part of the process. So you must be okay with people saying you're terrible, and that they hate it, and if you are, and I do want to do things differently. It's important to me. It's always been important to me to pursue truth through curiosity. Always been deadly important to me. But to do that, you're going to go through weird periods. You're going to be an awkward teenager trying to figure that out. And you have to be okay with that, and you have to be able to handle ridicule and mockery and all those things. You have to. So that's part of why you say, I don't give a fuck what the man says, is because you need to say that. But then later you find out you were lying to yourself a little bit. You do care. I do care. It's cool. And the first time I was nominated, it blew my mind because I think it was Brian, Stan, Dominic, and whoever else was kind of the biggest at the time. And then I was like, wow, I work for a small television channel in Canada. Those guys all work for Fox. Then the next year, actually the day after I lost my job, the day after, I was nominated for the award in my field, and I presented an award to Dana White for whatever, he's leading man or whatever. The very next day, they laid off everybody in my department. So the following year was a rebuilding year. But then last year, I couldn't believe I was nominated again by my peers. And so I would have figured this year I wouldn't be as surprised or as moved, but maybe even more so. Because I fucking give a shit about my stuff, and I want to break through with it, and I want it to reach, to be better, and I want it to be meaningful, and I'm trying to find truth in these weird little moments of fighting. I'm trying to find real human truth, and the fact that a bunch of people give a shit is actually really nice.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's it's always a weird balancing act, I think, for any artist in any field. Just the idea that on some level, one half of your job is to make your work, and the other, I know the ratios might be a little different, but part of your job is to make your work and to pursue your, passion and your inspirations and all that stuff. But the other half of your job, which is a big part of it, is to get that work out there to an audience that can see it, appreciate it. If you're making it in your bedroom, we have to ask ourselves, if you paint the thing nobody sees, is it even a painting? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think that has changed so dramatically that it's probably now 90% make the art. And I know that sounds crazy because I'm sharing it on 6 platforms every day, but that should only take me 15 minutes because the technology, it's sitting right in here. Like I literally can make it, press a bunch of buttons, and it's out there. Now, whether or not anybody sees it, I think the answer to that problem is more and better art too. And I really believe this. I think, let's say you're making something and you're making videos. That's the easy thing because that's something we do. You make a video, you post it you can make it. All the technology exists here to be able to make it. Everybody has this, and I'm holding this up because my phone is right here. This is my phone right now. But really, my phone and everybody's phone has the technology to make high-end video if that's the thing you make, or audio or whatever. Then you spend 10 or 15 minutes sharing it to these platforms, and somebody would say, yeah, but you got 130,000 followers on there. I only have 8 people. I still believe the best way to grow that will be just make more and better shit. If you spent 8 hours trying to grow your Instagram, I don't think that's 8 hours spent as well as making better shit. Because as you make, in those 8 hours, let's say you make 6 things. and the next day you made 6 more, and the next day, but you got so much better that you can make 8 quality things, and then 10. All of a sudden it's 40 great things every day being out in the world, and if and when they become good, human beings will share them with other people and go, look, this guy's making a cool video about pianos or oranges or cooking or whatever. And I really believe more and better work is the answer to selling your work or sharing. And again, I know that when people hear that, they're like, yeah, but you make a living doing it. But I didn't. Like 3 years ago, I had no job at all. I had 2,800 followers on Instagram. I got laid off from a job where my shit was made with a team of 10 people. I never edited videos ever in my life. All I used to do was make a breakdown, stand at a thing. I had a lighting guy, a makeup guy, makeup girl, an editor, a graphics person, all of it. And then they would hand it and they'd put it on television. And now I'm sitting there by myself with no job going, what the fuck do I do? And my answer was, do lots and lots and lots and lots of work. If you do, you'll get better at it and you'll learn all the other skills. And that was the most important ingredient to growing all the selling and the sharing was the doing. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a very deep appreciation for a lot of the people that in the last couple of years or even just during the pandemic have really sort of bucked up to do something that they haven't done before, or finally they can cap off this thing that they've been doing for a long time. Like your friend Luke Thomas. I have such an appreciation for what he's done in terms of his own channel, irrespective of all his other things, because I know that he's not at heart like a tech geek, like sort of creative nerd type of person. No. And he's just been building that channel and going through improving and, like better lens, better this, better that, figuring out how to do all this OBS stuff or whatever. Anybody that I've seen doing that stuff has been super inspiring to me. And I'm actually way more predisposed to actually like do it. So I'm like, well, okay, if I'm seeing people that like this is not their jam and they're killing it.
If you're seeing people who do something else, find these answers, and this is what you do, 100%, 100%. But it can be done now, right? Like and you're right. Can you imagine if you were 14 right now? Like, I know the world is much scarier if you're younger because it's so much is uncharted. Things feel like, the path seems more convoluted. It's scary. But if you're 14, like all of this stuff is second nature. Like there's not a 14-year-old in the world who can't just whip up an edit on their iPhone. Now, that might mean that people like us, Luke, yourselves, me, people who can make these things, these skills will be commodified and they won't be valuable and rare. So that could be challenging for us in the future. But at this point in time, the fact that we can figure it out, it exists in our fucking phones. Like, yes, a better lens and a better lighting and those things do matter. But I still make my breakdowns in this rudimentary device here. And I share it through my phone. And it's sitting there in your hand. And there will be the odd person, and I feel for people when they see listen to a podcast or they see something and they have that knee jerk, like, fuck that guy, as if somehow you guys have something they don't have. And I know that that's human nature. It's driven by fear or uncertainty or these things. But I always say to that person, it's like, there's no excuse. It's sitting there in your hand. Yes, from I have a phone in my hand to you guys have a podcast that's live on multiple things is a long distance, but it's just a bunch of little steps to get to that long distance. It can all be done. We have hundreds of examples of people doing it. There are plenty of soccer moms who suddenly sell something online. My wife is a performer. She sings and acts in musical theater. She has an Etsy store. She's been working on it for years now, but her once upon a time, she didn't know what Etsy was. Now she's a very, very successful Etsy store. This is sitting there. We can all do it. And sometimes you see there's a lot of the world is like encouraging people. And I like to try to do that. I like to try to let people know that they could do stuff. And people wonder why that is. But I think it's because you feel right now that people are hesitant or scared or paralyzed or like, that analysis paralysis. They're thinking about what they'd like to do, but then they don't do something. And that's a scary thing. I feel for people who are sitting there like that, but the answer is action. The answer almost always to almost any problem is action.
It truly is. Yeah, I mean, if you got to find your way out of a dark room, you're going to bump into some walls to find your way out. It's just the way it is. But it is. You're right though. It is an easier. There is a native instinct, I think, that people have maybe for uncertainty and a tolerance for that kind of thing, whereas others just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's upbringing or primordial design or whatever, but I think there's a lot of people that just don't have that, and we both probably need each other to survive mutually.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so. I mean, it's not a coincidence that. Do you ever have a conversation with somebody? Could be, on social media, could be in real life, could be on a podcast, hanging out, and you realize how different you see the world on something. It's like, that's good. Like, it's good that we got a lot of people who see the world differently. Currently in 2020, it appears to have caused a lot of problems as well, as we're trying to figure out how to make it all work, that we see the world differently, and as maybe our differences are being amplified by many factors. But the idea in the long run, and it's historically been true, and you hope that the future history it'll be true, the fact that we're all a little different while also being similar is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Joe is really different.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing, Joe.
No, I think that's completely true, and I think that on some level, I mean, that's where that curiosity thing comes in, I think, and that's where is especially in all these different creative projects that we're doing, or a fighter's style as it develops and things like that. It's like that personal curiosity, that one of a kind thing, that it's like the way that you think, the way you put ideas together, the way you want to express yourself, and it's like little by little, even though we're all doing Muay Thai, this is Shansai's Muay Thai, or this is somebody else's Muay Thai, or this is this is Muhammad Ali boxing, which is unlike anyone else boxing, that kind of thing.
That's true. It's identity. It's such a weird process. I have a friend, Dr. Stu McGill, and he studies. He's a professor of spine biomechanics.
You've interviewed with him before, haven't you?
Yeah, I just did one yesterday, and in fact, when I did this breakdown on how, I get hit and I get buzzed, and then I throw back. And that moment we see over and over again. And we use any number of little things. He countered him, or it's a right-hand counter, or, he got buzzed, he bit down on his mouthpiece. But, my curiosity and what I'm hoping to do, like, I don't want to just say knockout power with both hands and get paid to wear a suit. Like, that's not my pursuit. That's a byproduct of my pursuit. My pursuit is what's really happening, and what can we learn from this, and how will we look at this and go, holy fuck, I didn't know that about humans. And so I'm like, what is that thing? And I actually started on this about probably 10 years ago now. I was fighting, and I had a boxing coach. My boxing was kind of a limitation early on, Billy Martin, and I just loved the guy. And I trained with him at least 4 times a week for years. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, and when I throw my right hand now, whether it's Henry Hooft or, Dwayne Ludwig or whoever is holding pads for me at whatever point, they always go, oh, fuck, that's a real right hand, because he trained that into me. But the other thing he trained into me was when we were at the bag, and he would sit there so patiently day after day for years. He would throw a punch, and I would slip it, hit the bag, slip it, hit the bag, slip it, hit the bag. In a boring, yet I found a natural, inherent joy in it, which is why we train anything. And I loved it, and I love him, and I wanted to please him. Is that which is an important part in some coaches. You would just, whatever it is about that he or she, you just want to make them happy. It's a really strong thing about a particular relationship. But over and over, tens of thousands of times. And then one day I'd be sparring, and that jab would come, and I'd slip it and throw. And I never thought, I never planned it, I never did anything. It just fucking happened. And I could not fucking believe this. Like, and I mean, it happened always. And people generally don't say, oh, I was sparring with this guy and I punched him. And I'm certainly not trying to say that. However, and let me use an example, because he's a friend, Sam Stout. So Sam Stout, after this punch, I will preface this by saying he kicked the fuck out of me. Kicked the fuck out of me because he was a much higher level martial artist than me. But he was very punch, kick, slip, boom. First punch, first jab, slip right hand. I would do it in every training session until after a while you did it and then it didn't work anymore because the guy knew that you were going to do that. He'd fake a jab or he'd do some other thing to exploit you. But suddenly I could do this and I couldn't fucking believe it. And I knew I wasn't thinking about it. But I knew something had changed in my brain. And I also knew that the words we had for it were not enough. Mm-hmm. You know, I had trained a reflex or muscle memory or these things that we say were just the word. We do this a lot. And this is part of the process to studying anything passionately. So you look and you go, I see a thing. I recognize that's a thing. Wait, there's a word for that thing. If you stop there, you actually didn't really do much analysis. You reckon that's a low kick, there's a check. And this is a part of how my job is often done at a mainstream level. Oh, beautiful right hand. Oh, an unbelievable check. Look at the timing. All we're doing is seeing a thing, recognizing that thing, and then using the sounds that we make with our face and applying it to that. It's not actually analysis, really. That's low-level analysis when you're like, I don't know what these things are. Oh, it's these things. But the next level is, what is that? Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, it's muscle memory. Well, what the fuck is that? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you mean it's muscle? What is that thing? My muscle doesn't have any memory. Oh, wait, it's slang. What does it actually mean? So I started to study, and this is going on 10 years now, started to study, you know, you had to study the brain. Mm-hmm. You just didn't have any choice. And so for 8-9 years, focus the mechanics of the brain, how our neurology works, how our brain moves our nervous system. This has become one of my obsessions. And I have 6 or 7, and I usually won't talk about them till 10 years later, till thousands of hours later, because just, again, saying the thing will not really tell you anything. Right. I've got to understand it so that when you hear the words that I use, you can relate the fact that I've learned something. That has to be a real thing. It has to be real in my understanding. And then I have to, over time, talking about it with friends like you guys, share an idea and then develop a language that makes sense that an audience could then digest it. It wouldn't sound ridiculous to them. Maybe it's funny or interesting, or we use some particular shape of language to tell it. So I started doing that. And then with this piece with Sergio, there is a mechanism of training your brain to, and we all know this inherently. You know, if you're playing, there's certain, it's called an engram. An engram is sort of a sequence of actions that you've programmed into yourself to do when a particular stimulus happens. Uh-huh. We all have a million of these. Something happens and we duck. Somewhere along the line, that engram happened, right? Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, you're like, well, did I see the thing? Did I think about ducking? What was my mental process? Uh-huh. None of that happened. There was a neurological response that had been pre-programmed into you, either intentionally, like slip, punch, or mm-hmm. unintentionally. For some reason, something happens and we have a reflex. And some has probably been there since before we started moving. Maybe it's just in us, but that's uh-huh. real. And so I started to get together with my friend, Dr. Stu, and then I built this piece on Sergio, and then I ran it past him. And I sent it to him, and he loved it. And then I did a podcast with him yesterday to talk about it in more detail. And he just fucking gave me such kind compliments. Like, he was like, if I was still teaching, I'd have you come in and present this to my class. Oh. And it's just such a fucking, I don't know how I started talking about Dr. Stu, but he is one of my very, 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 very favorite. And we kind of all develop our crew or our tribe. And I'm in your guys' tribe, and you guys are in my tribe. Well, Dr. Stu is one of my favorite people, uh-huh. and because he's in his 60s, and he's literally been studying the spine and the nervous system and how it works with a human being since he was 20. So, mm-hmm. and what he can tell you about how humans move and why they move and what the mechanisms are is fascinating. And usually what happens is through talking to him, it'll start a self-directed research that'll last for fucking 5 or 6 or 8 years, or maybe never end for me. But these are the people that you want kind of right. in that process, who force you to kind of go down certain paths and learn certain things.
Mm-hmm. I love people like that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, I love people like that. Like the people that guy's like standing in front of you in line at a coffee shop or something, and looks totally unassuming. And you have no idea that this guy's, you know, his mind is just this insane reservoir on this focused point of just absolute astronomical knowledge. Like I love anybody that's just gone down the wormhole and stayed
Yeah.
in the wormhole.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll tell you quickly, that story meandered everywhere. And I have been drinking a
We
lot
love
of
it.
coffee today because I
That's
have
great.
a lot of
Drink
a
more.
lot of things. You know? But I was in Los Angeles, and I had. Oh, is that an art fight podcast?
It is.
Cut?
Well,
you guys.
why that is? Yes, it is an art fight
You got to
podcast.
send me one. I will.
Okay.
I will use
We will send you
I've
one.
got
We'll
my
send you-
Rogan podcast somewhere here that I use, but I will definitely use your guys.
Okay.
So I was in LA, and I met this made friends with some people. Now, this one woman that I'm friends with, her husband is the world's greatest trumpet player of a particular type of Ethiopian jazz.
Wow, I love
And I
Ethiopian
heard
music.
that, and I was like, holy fuck. This
Like Mahmoud Ahmed type shit.
Yeah. He produced like Solange Knowles' album. Like, he's a big producer too, and that's how he makes his living. But he's also Simon is his last name. I forget. Todd Simon. And White, his wife, is an old friend of mine, and so we were hanging out. And man, to understand the level of special in the whole world, if you want to know about Ethiopian jazz, trumpet playing of Ethiopian jazz, Todd Simon's your guy. So I'm hanging out with them, and I'm fascinated by it. And they tell me about a gentleman who is the guy who creates those water fountains in Vegas. And anywhere you see those. And so they put me on, and I was talking to them about fighting, and they're like, God, hearing you remind us so much of this friend, and I forget his name now, this friend of ours who, has created essentially the modern super fountain that you see that they use with water and stuff. And I got to talk to this guy. So they put me on the phone with him, and he is so stoked to tell me about this. And basically he's like, listen, what we do is we train water. I'm like, what do you mean? But then he starts to break it down about how you line up by doing it in a certain way and creating a certain vibration. You're lining up the water molecules in such a way that and I'm hearing this guy and I'm like, holy fuck, this is his whole life. But this is the world, right? These are such, I'll try to find fighting is a big part of what you guys do, but I'll try to track him down because you guys should definitely talk to him.
Okay.
But think of that, dedicating your life to training water. And the rest of us hear it. We don't know fuck all about water, We'll be like, you can't train water. How the fuck am I trying to tell the world's foremost expert on training water that you can't train water, right? Like, but this is the
as a
world we
water
live in.
whisperer.
It's like, what do you mean be like water? It's own water's ass.
Yeah, create water. But it was wild. And to hear him, but then you see this beauty when you watch those fountains and the power that they have and the rhythm and all these the music that they create, and you're like, fucking right, that guy is training water. Fucking right, he is. And then you hear him talk about it, but that's what mastery of your craft is. Mastery of your craft is going out and in multiple paradigms, viewing it and connecting it to these things. That's the mastery of it. It isn't one thing. It isn't doing martial arts. It isn't commentating martial arts. It isn't, the psychology of it. It isn't Muay Thai. It isn't timing. It's over time seeing that all of those things connect and they're fluid. And maybe I'll never get there. And maybe, the potential of understanding that's there, maybe who knows how far we can go down if we study something obsessively for our entire life. Who knows how far we'll be able to reach. But wherever it is, it's worth it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say, like you're talking about your friend or you or talking about this gentleman who you were able to connect with and realize, this guy's, on fire about this thing I don't even know anything about. I think that's also, the sort of feeling you get from those people, or the feeling you get for the coach that you want to please and all that stuff. To me, that goes back to what you were talking about earlier about these award shows and how this particular World MMA Awards situation is special because it's not just the industry, recognizing the people who, are the celebrating themselves essentially in some way because it's good for business. Or it's not just the fans who are entertained by this and they pick the funniest clown, or they pick the loudest voice, or whatever it is, where when you're talking about the people who are actually doing it and in the middle of it, that are essentially your, like you say, who are your peers, then all of a sudden when those people turn and they say, hey, you nice right, or hey, great idea, or whoa, that's the craziest concept I've ever heard, it means so much more because you know that they know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or at least, we all will eventually start to, and they'll seem like brothers. You'll be like, oh my God, there's somebody obsessed about their thing. And suddenly you feel some brotherhood connection to them because you understand what they do and how driven they are to do it for whatever reason. And there are people that, the act of doing is a big part of it, that by doing, you learn and you improve and then you get better at the stuff. So if say it's making videos about cooking, you got to cook and make the videos. You could make 10 a year and that would be good. But if you made 1,000, you would do the process 1,000 times. And in doing so, you would learn all these things about it. But somebody else brought to my attention, speaking of the MMA award nomination, and this was about 10 days ago. And a friend of mine was like, the thing is, bro, like, that these people are nominating you for your work because you're not very well liked. And I was like, what? I'm like, well, what do you mean? And what do you mean I'm not well liked? He goes, and he's a good friend. He goes, I'm not trying to be rude. He's like, you just aren't aware. He's like, you seem arrogant. I was like, what? I'm not. And he was like, yeah, you seem arrogant when you're like traveling around these places. You seem like you're judgmental to like the people who are, journalists or storytellers or whatever. And you're not necessarily nice to everybody, and you don't have a lot of friends in the field. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, holy fuck, he's right. Like I go into these places and I'm gonna try to be better, but not in any artificial way. Like that was the other thing. It's like, then I thought about it. I was like, but I thought this guy was my friend. Like, let's say Brett Okamoto. I'm like, I think I'm friends with Brett Okamoto, and I'm pretty sure that I am, but we never really know how others perceive us. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm just choosing him at random because I really do like him, and he's a very sweet guy. And I'm choosing him at random, and I'm like, whenever I see him, I'm happy to see him, and I think I'm nice, but I'm seeing me the way that I see me. I'm not necessarily at all recognizing that individual, I'm somebody walking around in the world of them, and they will have their perception of how I am based on information that they glean. They don't know my motives. They don't know that I'm like, I like everybody and I want to like, I'm like excited like a little kid. All they know is I'm like this, and I'm hyper focused, and I'm like looking around and I'm doing my shit, and like, they don't know that I'm actually like super stoked to see them. So it was a really eye-opening thing. Like,
well, confidence can have a problem or create problems in that way, right? Because if you're self-assured, even in your lack of knowledge or uncertainties in certain areas, you do know what you know, and you believe in your philosophy and your path and your mission. And so anybody, like in my experience, I find that people that have a problem with me probably have a reason to say that. But at the same time, I do think that what sets the platform for that to kind of go south is just sort of when you seem very self-assured and you're just confident for whatever reason, man, that just can set the stage for weird vibes.
It can. But when I'm really on a trip of trying to find my faults is the easy word to say, but my role in any scenario, because I cannot control what you actually think. I certainly can't control how you act. So if anything is not quite the way that we would like it, the only thing that I could possibly address is what I am doing wrong or different or not doing enough or whatever. It's also, you have to, the shortage we have is time. So it's like, it does matter to me that people would know that I have a kind vibe towards them, but not enough to infringe on the amount of time that I have to do my fucking purpose, right? So then you start to, and this is all the opportunity cost of life. It's like, I would really like that person to know that I like have good vibes with them. I like seeing them. So all you can really do, and you certainly can't be distracted by that. So all you can really do is make sure that if you have some positive feeling towards a friend or a colleague, that you express it.
Right.
Because they don't know that you're thinking, I'm sure glad to see that guy. So what I took away from it wasn't,
Yes, Brian.
Okay.
What I took away from it wasn't because I'll never be good at this. I'll never want to do this. And I see it as the opposite of what I believe. And that is figuring out how to do politics or like be a schmoozer or whatever that word is in such a way that it would be of benefit to me. To me, that's the opposite of how I look. And any conflicts that I've ever had in business have been 100% my unwillingness to acknowledge that that thing is a thing. Like I literally am like, I don't give a fuck what games we're supposed to play with that guy who manages this department. I'm pretty sure if I spend all that effort just doing really fucking killer work, that'll work out better. And that's not always true. But you got to have some philosophy, and that's mine. Right. So I definitely can't suddenly be in like, oh, hey, great to see you. I'm going to be consciously aware that I want to like make more friends in my field. And that ain't ever going to be me. But what I did get from that is, wait a second, are you expressing your positive feelings? Are you letting people know you like them? Are you letting people know that you care about them or that they're important to you or you value them? Because that isn't any longer. That's the thing I'm hoping is valuable, because that has nothing to do with MMA awards or like, that's real life.
Right.
Like, do I tell my friends? And I started actually doing this just in the last, couple of months. I started telling my male friends that I love them. And it freaks them out a little bit at first, but it starts to actually be cool. And now a couple of them are like, yeah, I love you too, bro. I'm like, this is really good. Like, this is a good thing. Yeah. Now, I don't want to be telling Brett Okamoto or like whoever I see at work, only see 6 times a year backstage somewhere. I love you, bro. That would seem like a fucking weirdo. But that idea of doing that with my friends and the people around me and my close coworkers, I think is a really valuable thing. Because again, you're not changing something or doing something that's not real. You really think highly of this person.
Right.
But for some fucking reason, your upbringing or the environment you're in, you're not telling people how you feel about them. And that's not good. Like, I have close friends, John, Marc-Andre, Evan. I have a ton of close friends. It's like, do I let them know how important they are to me? And then now I start to. And you know what inevitably will happen? It happens to be fresh in my mind right now. In 4 months, I'll forget again. I'll overly obsessed with my work and the things close to me. I'll forget again. But being aware of it is how we learn anything.
Look,
right?
It's probably a little bit forward, Robin, but I love you, okay? And, I don't know if you're.
I was gonna end today with I love you.
No, but so
still do that.
I do know that you got to turn the corner pretty quick because I know you've got some important things to get to, Robin. But
I think we got 15 or 20 minutes. She
cool.
won't kill me. I mean, when I say that, sometimes she'll be like, "I'll fucking kill you." Well, I'm just gonna help my wife out with something later.
So
if you have to fail, let us know, but we'll go a little bit longer.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to make sure we get to, and one is sort of more philosophical, and the other is pretty specific in terms of Bellator 242 and all that. So, but the thing I wanted to talk about real quick is, you are obviously a very curious person, and that is what drives you, is just a passion for curiosity, almost as an art form unto itself. And I think that, I think we all kind of fit into that category in some way as just really expressive and curious people. But I guess one of the things that I have found to be the greatest challenge for me, and I see this in a lot of other artists and creative friends, is, if you're a curious person, that means you're going to have a lot of input, and you're going to have also a lot of ideas, and you're going to have opportunities to create these sort of manifestations of these ideas into greater constellations of ideas, or to something specific, or whatever. And a friend of mine said this to me once, and it always stuck with me. He said, what I'm really into, though, is manifestation governance. And I just really, I mean, we were super baked when he said this,
We're
but
all
it
like,
made
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
No, but the thing is that when I observe people like you, Robin, I think, how do you put all of that boundless curiosity into sort of into lanes? And I know that you struggle with this. I know that
I do.
I know that this is a constant thing, right? Especially like your relationship to social media, or how much time am I spending on this versus that, and where's the real meaning, or what is the real experience, or what is really valuable. But ultimately, I guess I'm just curious about like your sort of thoughts on this concept of kind of manifestation governance, or how to sort of contain things in a way that doesn't hinder but just directs.
So yeah, you're 100% right. That is an ongoing pressure and stress that I have. And I don't know necessarily the answers, but it's funny again. My friend Dr. Stu is fresh in my mind because he's one of these really fascinating guys. You guys, actually, I should hook you up, and you'd love him. On my YouTube channel is my chat with him yesterday or whenever it was. But I asked him kind of that. Like, what's your thing? What are you doing now? What's next? Where are you going? And he gave me an answer that I think would be his answer 3 years ago and will be his answer 3 years from now. He's like, I keep getting presented by problems, and when I get to I don't know, that's now where I'm working. Because, and I think that's the root of it. I don't know, or I'm not sure, or another in my field, in our field, I think it's how and why. Like the next thing is how and why. Okay. Like I was saying about getting hit, you get buzzed, you bite down on your mouthpiece and you throw back, or muscle memory or whatever. It's like, what actually is that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's this. Well, how? Well, because of this. Well, why? And if you keep asking it, you keep going deeper. And then, so that's the self-directed nature of it. And then I believe you must physically do it, or else it's all theory. And we often get this. It's like people will be like, you don't have to do it because you can study it, examine experts, read about it, whatever. But I don't understand why anyone would think that's an either or. It's not like go train in martial arts or go play piano or go make movies. Or you could go to theater school and read about making movies and study movies and watch lots of movies and review movies. It's like you do both. Mm-hmm. Both is the answer. And so you keep doing. But yeah, the governance, the figuring out how to do it, I think that's the realistic problem that's always ongoing. And I think the root philosophies that you have to that I continually try to recognize that help is I get reminded. It's like wherever here is, whether that is where I am right now, here is, let's say, the quality of my work, or how many people I can share my work with, or what type of breakthrough I want to have, or what I want to say, or what I'm trying to learn. Wherever here is, whatever got me here is not what will get me here. And that's just a fact. And that fact spurs you to continually examine it. So I'm hoping a big breakthrough for me is less social media. And I just said this the other day. I was like, I took so much pride in literally answering every single person that took time to message me with anything. Not only did I do that, I was fucking proud that I did that, but I cannot do that anymore. Mm-hmm. If I do that, I will not get better at my work, and I will not be happier, more content, and more serene. Lean, mean, serene fighting machine is something. Because I asked a fighter, I think it was Rafion Stotts, I said, "Are you like serene right now? How you feeling? Mean and that's what I said. Mean and serene." He said, "I'm a lean, mean, serene fighting machine." I'm like, yes. That idea that you can be serene enough to do good work, to grow as an artist, to improve your stuff, to be happy at home and be healthy and all that shit, that's being undermined by this. And it's the other thing. The idea that I thanked everyone when I was proud of it was because I literally saw it, went, holy fuck, that's so cool. And over and over and over, I thought that. This person took time because they saw something I did that I worked really hard on to say, I like it. Or they said something mean, and I thought, I might be able to trick them into being a little happier or whatever. But then for the last couple of years, because, maybe there's 250,000 people that follow me, and a lot of them interact now, which is a fucking compliment beyond all comprehension. But as a result, I started seeing it as a responsibility, not something I liked to do or something I was grateful or thankful. So now all of a sudden I would finish all my work and I'd do stuff, and then I'd be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I started to just type, one word, and then other words would pop up. So it's like, thank, and you so much would come up, and then I click brother.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm not really giving them the thing anyways. I'm not really honestly providing the connection, the thankful connection that I was proud of. Now I'm just doing a thing because I feel it's a responsibility because I've always done it. And now I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm distracted, and you get this weird feeling if you burn it too long, where all of a sudden you're like grumpy or disorganized, or you've got weird anxieties, or you apply meaning to things that aren't there. And I lived in that state for 3 or 4 days sometime in the last couple of months, and a few other times ever in my life. And then right away, I'm like, how can I change this? And the answer is always go back and make art, make shit you like. And as soon as I do that, I feel better. So now I'm seeing the thing that is making me less happy, less successful, interfering with my art, is interfering with the thing that makes me better, happy, or whatever. So that's gotta change. But that you learn by understanding what got you here is not the thing that will get you there. It's assessing what you're, and also the root of what you're doing. I mean, there's so many things that have that ability that I never would have thought this. I never would have said this a couple of years ago. But there's all these things that have the ability to undermine my own thought process and happiness. And usually the way they do that is they get in the way of me doing the thing that I love to do. And I think I mistakenly, and that's the other thing too, what is it we do? Like, what are we doing here? Because answering tweets, if that's your job now, then great, you're killing it. It's not making you happy. You're not creating anything meaningful. It's distracting you. You didn't get a workout in today, and you ate junk food. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Whereas the other one is like, I take pieces of martial artistry and I analyze it and I study it and I peel back layers and find things I don't understand, and then I study them for years and then figure out ways to explain it. And then when I do and I put it out, I'm so excited. This thing is stopping me from doing this thing. And this thing's genuinely made me happy and successful and a better husband and a better person. So it becomes self-evident, but I should have figured this out probably a year or two ago. If I was really paying attention, or I was really, being curious about my own process, I would have understood this a year earlier and I'd be further along. But lesson learned, it's still part of it. Hopefully 2 years from now, my work makes breakthroughs. I'm making things that I never would have dreamed I could, that are meaningful and interesting and creating some other kind of value. And part of that path was this change. But yeah, it's, and then the other one, so I'm riffing here, but the other one is whenever in doubt, go to the basics. Am I eating good? Am I sleeping good? What kind of exercise am I getting? Am I doing any kind of meditation or mindfulness? If not, what the fuck are you doing? How did you end up here? What's the cause of that? Is it laziness? I'm not lazy. It's distraction. So yeah, but this shocked me when I felt really anxious and angry and weird, and then burnout is a part of it, where burnout's a risk that is a very real risk when you do what you love all day. You don't want to think that, but literally you do what you love all day. And then at night I do it. And then in the next morning I do it. And the only things in my life for long periods of time are my wife, who's my best friend, a couple of key friends, a walk with my dog, and 12 or 15 hours a day of studying martial arts and making art around it. You will burn out when you do that. You will.
Right.
But yeah, that process also, made me realize it's like, am I training properly? Am I eating properly? And, that's what I was going to say. So then in those that period of being a little grumpy and a little weird and a little reactionary, and angry at the internet and stuff like that, I stopped and I was like, okay, We've got to change something. That's not healthy. But then once I started to feel better and a little more adjusted and a little more sort of into kind of, that serene, lean, mean, serene fighting machine that I like, I realized there's a lot of people who live those, that 10 days of burnout and 4 days of being really off. A lot of people who live like that for years of their lives. There's a lot of people living that way right now. I'm not judging them, and I'm not like, looking down on them. They didn't plan that.
Right.
It's just the world we live in has a lot of these things, a lot of these traps that you can easily get caught in, even if you're looking for them. Even if you have a structure that you've built and you're fairly successful in what you do, you can still get caught. So imagine people who aren't even aware of them. There are people right now yelling at Facebook, angry, outraged about something as they get information, eating Doritos, sitting on the couch, taking pills for restless leg syndrome, and all the traps that they got caught up in. And fuck, that's a scary thing. And once you realize that, it's like, oh my God, like what's that like when it's built on for weeks and months and years? That's not a way to live. So how can we change that? And I think the answer is the world needs more people doing good things, doing shit they like, doing meaningful work, things they find meaningful. I don't think the world needs more of anything specifically. It just needs more people trying to do something positive, and whatever that thing is, I think that's the only path. We certainly are not going to convince the guy yelling on Twitter or Facebook, whether that's you, me, Steve, anybody. We're never going to. That's another weird thing. I suddenly realized it's like almost nobody changes their minds these days. Almost nobody. It's so. If that's true, if we're looking at the world and going, most people are not going to change their mind. That includes you guys and me. Love you guys.
I beg to differ. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. If that's true, then why on earth would we try to spend any moments trying to change somebody's mind? If nobody's minds are changing, what the fuck are we doing trying to change anybody? And I know this to be true, but suddenly it's just been hitting me lately. It's like, wait a second. All of these things are traps. We talked about this before too. Our own opinions are traps. Our own opinions are traps. And then any effort to change the opinion of somebody else is an even deeper trap. And those things will get in the way of your life and your happiness and your art and your family and all of those things. It's fucked up. The world's a fucked up place and humans are fucked up. But this conversation with you guys is so incredibly valuable to me to even just, you say these things out loud. To some people, everything we're saying sounds insane right now. but to us, we're like,
welcome to the Art Fight Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Wait a second. By realizing these hazards exist in our modern world, we will inoculate ourselves ever so slightly against them, and or take actions to prevent them from happening or getting worse or whatever. But that's all part of it. And I don't just back to your original question. I don't think that's part of, just trying to figure out how to get better as an artist or do meaningful work. I think that's everybody's issue right now. That's the world we're in, and that's, and it's a spooky thing, but we got to be on top of it. We gotta live our best lives, as the kids say.
Yeah, no doubt. Brian, you said you wanted to ask the question about the upcoming Bellator event.
Well, nothing specific. Just I just figured I feel like with Robin we can just go, okay, Robin, Bellator 242, and then we don't even have to have it.
It's not even a question.
Like why am I going to bother like trying to form some path? Like why do I need to set something up for this guy? I don't think so.
I mean, fuck. That's true. But when anything can be said, that's also very intimidating, right?
I do have an angle. I have an angle. Here's my angle. Like, obviously a big return for Bellator. This is a big deal. I think that it would be foolish not to fully acknowledge, what has happened with the UFC over the last few months, 6 months, with all the mounting sort of fighter pay and all the other things. I don't want to get into all that shit, but basically just, I feel like that the general flavor of the UFC the power that they had from a brand perspective. I don't. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm more of like a hardcore or whatever, but I don't feel like that the mojo is there, right? As much. I'm not saying there's not still brilliant, amazing things going on and Herculean efforts, and I'm not meaning to be disrespectful to the UFC at all. I'm just saying, just in general, there's like a sheen of like I'm magnetized towards like the people that are kind of the underdogs that are making good. And I'm not saying that Bellator's an underdog necessarily either, but I do feel like that right now this event to me has this opportunity to show itself in a way in contrast perhaps to the UFC that is a little bit unparalleled relative to the times that we're in.
So I agree. It should be said that, and I always am aware that people, the world we live in, if you ask like a UFC homer and a Bellator homer, they will give you different answers. So I would try to offer that I get to work for both. I analyze the UFC on SportsCenter in Canada, and I get to analyze Bellator. So that, I hope, contextualizes that I don't really have a dog in it. But they are very fucking different. They are very different, and their paths are very different. And, you know, when you just remove any logo whatsoever, you just have martial artists fighting. Incidentally, you will notice, now that I've said this, you will notice that the words martial arts will be used 200 times in a UFC broadcast right now, and MMA used 3, which I couldn't be fucking happier about. And that is, these things are somewhat intentional. Like there are and again, this is a difference between the two of them. The UFC is a highly produced television product. That television product, they have buzzwords. They have not as much as the WWE, but certain things they want you to say, certain things they don't want you to say, certain language that they use. So when everybody's saying I'm a martial artist or martial arts, that isn't by accident. Somewhere in there, somebody has done a test of the audience, or like a whatever they call these things, where
Focus
people go in and they all focus group or whatever.
Yeah.
And MMA is not testing well, and martial arts is cool right now, and I'm thrilled by that. So you see that, but it's highly structured, and I do believe. But this again is my bias because I'm an early adopter. I like things to change and stuff. So it's biased by my perspective, but I feel like it's very formulaic. And I feel like sports is very formulaic. And I feel like their presentation is an American sports league, and they want that and they achieve that. But I don't know that that's all that fucking cool right now necessarily. They also very much, and again, this is just a company philosophy. I'm not talking out of turn. You could Google Dana White in this sentence and he will say it many times, I'm sure, but it's a brand first presentation of this highly produced television product. And if you Google or go on Instagram or whatever and put in, who's the featherweight champion of the world right now? Volkanovski. Put him in there, and there's not a lot of heat around these individuals at all right now, but it's about the brand. It's a Fight Island, UFC, and so that aspect, I think if I was another company, I would be doing the opposite. Let's make it about these individuals. Let's promote these individuals. Now, what would that do? One, it'll make you different. Any brand difference is good. And two, you might actually get more fighters later saying, I wouldn't mind being over there. It looks really cool. It's different. So by trying to be less formulaic, I think that's a chance. And this is all just sort of the outside the nuts and bolts stuff. But I spend a lot, and again, this also I think is with that awareness that people are always worried. Are you a Republican or a Democrat? What are you? That will inform me as to what you're actually saying. I think I'm much closer to behind the scenes. So fighters, I fucking love the fights in both. Even when my friends are commentating, I'm usually have music on and I just see fights, and I see two bodies interacting, and I don't see logos, and none of that really affects me. But then the business of it, I'm close to a lot of people in Bellator. The other thing is, most of the big key people in the UFC are business people and television producers. Most of the people, and Bellator is much smaller, they're all martial artists. Rich Chow the matchmaker, is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Scott Coker doesn't talk about this a lot, but he's a multiple level black belt in taekwondo, and he's one of these guys. Scott Coker, well, he's never talks about this. There's footage of him bending rebar with old kung fu guys and like crazy. He's got a weird Bruce Lee collection of like original Bruce Lee notes written on fucking napkins and stuff.
Wow.
Mike Kogan, who is one of their operations heads, he had a kickboxing match against fucking Douglas Lima.
Oh my God.
Many years earlier when Douglas was like 18. Like these are martial artists. So that is, you can say martial arts more when you're a sports company because it tests better. And that's cool. And like I said, I work for both. I want to keep both jobs because I really enjoy talking about the fights in both of them. But you still have a bunch of jocks talking about a sport there. And that's cool because there's an audience for that. If you're Bellator, you have martial artists running a martial arts show, selecting people based on skill and stuff. That's where you should mine. And they do to a certain degree. Listen, tomorrow, Friday, people could be watching this anytime. It's Bellator 242. I haven't heard this from anybody in the company, but if I was the boss, my only goal is just exist on Friday night. Just exist. You have these brilliant young fighters. Give them an environment in which they can fight. Have a broadcast that exists. Like exist. So the first one is about existing. It's like last week there was no Bellator. Sunday or Saturday morning, Bellator is back. That would be your only goal. That would be my only goal. Then beyond that, it's like and this is a high priority for Bellator. And again, I'm closer with individual humans in Bellator than I am with the UFC. So I don't always know, I can't speak to their motives, but Bellator seems to be more about, okay, Sergio Pettis and Ricky Bandejas, let's give these young kids a chance to have a beautiful, wonderful fight in this environment where we take care of them and let them have their experience. And again, this is not, the logical way to say this about UFC would be, they're just so big, they can't prioritize that. They're so big and they're such a machine that, if this is how big Bellator, the organism that's putting on a show on Friday night, the fighters are this big. If this is how big the UFC is, the fighters are still that big, right? So you are a less important, mathematically, the fraction of importance of you versus the UFC is much smaller, whereas in Bellator it's much higher. So if you're Bellator, you're like, let that word get out however it gets out, and maybe some other fighters will come along. And there are young fighters coming up saying, I want to fight in Bellator. It's not 25% yet, but maybe it's 8 or 9%, and that's a lot. Patrick Mix wants to be the Bellator champion. He didn't give up his UFC dream to go to Bellator. He wanted to go to Bellator. He wants to be a Bellator champion. In Ireland and Scotland and England and there, Bellator has a real foothold there. There are young British and Welsh and Irish kids that want to fight for Bellator. So that's a powerful thing. But even if all that happens, could Bellator, I don't know, in theory, they're 1/10 as big maybe. Could they become 2/10 or 3/10 as big? Maybe. Does that matter to me? Working for either or both or whichever one I would work more for in the future? Not really. I don't really care. I just care about the fights. But this stuff is all still interesting. You see it up close. You see it happening. To study anything is to kind of see it in all things, But yeah, it's another weird one though when you think about it is by the time again they're very different. Bellator is like, we will not take giant risks just to be back in on putting on shows. Where the UFC is and if you know Dana and all the great things they've accomplished is rooted in part because of this. He's like, I don't care what the fucking problem is, I will fix it. I don't care what the challenge is, I'll fucking crush it. That's who he is, right? That's who he is. It's authentic. That's why you can't be mad when my dog barks. When he barks, I'm not mad. That's what he does. He's my chihuahua. He barks. When Dana White's like, fuck this, I'll find a solution. I don't care what we have to do. I don't care what it'll cost. I don't care what the risk is. That's a beautiful fucking thing. That's a cool thing. On the other side, Bellator is like, at all costs, protect everybody. don't take undue risks. Don't put ourselves in a situation maybe, and this is in my mind. I haven't heard this from anyone. Don't put ourselves in a situation where suddenly we get, we're in danger because something bad has happened. Protect the future. And then Dana's like, fuck the future. Right now, we got to make this happen, right? So those two things are very different. As a result, the UFC has done 8 shows, and Bellator is doing the first one. But I believe the thinking of the life organism that is Bellator is, hey, man, as long as we keep getting better, and it's my personal philosophy, as long as we keep getting better, as long as we keep doing more meaningful stuff, and if we deeply give a shit, this will always grow. And I always believe that's true.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really well said. I think, I find Bellator to be just, it's an interesting space to me, specifically just because, like you say, there's that difference between the way the UFC's almost been, at least the way it's marketed and the way it's literally outfitted, et cetera, et cetera. It's been, they've tried to give it the sheen of a team sport like basketball or baseball or football here in the States, to give it a legitimacy and make it something other than just like, bloody cage fighting. And that was obviously great strategy, and probably the entire sport owes them a debt of gratitude, because they plowed forward and made room for this sport with that shield in front of them, And with that said, now we live in a space where there's other promotions, and promotions like Bellator are specifically interesting to me because their individual fighters are able to blossom with a lot more personality, and that's so fun.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you're being totally honest, and you knew a 19-year-old that you thought could be one of the, and you never really know this, and this is often tricked. A coach will be like, listen, Robin, you don't understand. My guy, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen a guy as good as my guy. And the truth is like, I have. And I know how quickly it's changing. You're comparing your guy to the guys of 3 years ago. There's a guy in Mexico right now, just like your guy. There's 2 guys in Japan, just like your guy. Your guy is better than everything you've seen before, but you don't know that the whole world has your guy right now, because this is the level.
Like confirmation bias,
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right. You have never seen a guy this good. And they'll say to me, no, you don't understand. And I'll think, you don't understand. It's changing so fast. You think your guy is an anomaly, but he is part of a wave of a newly produced human being who's taken in a new environment, taken in new information in a way that makes him capable of things that 2 years ago people weren't. And I know you're only seeing your guy, but there's 11 of them that I've seen. Yeah. And I haven't seen the other 33. So you can't really gauge it. But if you are Greg Jackson, who has seen this wave many times, so this is not what I'm saying right now is not only not a surprise to him, he has other layers of looking at it that I don't know. He would be able to gauge and go, well, this guy's 22. If he doesn't blow out his knee, I think he could, really get somewhere. But it might take, these days, it might take 3 or 4 fights. He will make low amounts of money. He'll be on undercards. His own world around him won't grow. He'll just be another guy in here. Maybe he'd be better off fighting in Bellator or one championship, and there are kids that's true. Now, 5 years ago, if a coach said that to them, they'd be like, no, bro, you don't understand. My dream's fighting the UFC. I'm going to be a UFC champion one day. And that would be the thing that coach could never get past. Because that kid has a dream, and you don't fucking get it, coach. The UFC is the dream. The dream wasn't be a pro MMA fighter somewhere on planet Earth. The dream was be in the UFC, meet Joe Rogan in the ring, have Bruce say that thing, and you can't get past that kid. But now, maybe 20% of them you could, and 20% of them would see that as a real thing. 20% of them came up and watched all the Bellator shows over the last 3 or 4 years and liked them. And actually, knows some fighters that make a good living in there. So now it's a possibility. Right. It isn't 50% of them aren't going to go, but some will. And if you're in there for the long run, if you're in there for the long haul of make a difference and grow and be bigger 5 years from now than you are today with better, more meaningful martial arts, then that's the route you take. That is a large improvement in the situation of where Bellator is, that there's some percentage of young fighters who are like, fucking rights, that's a good job for me. Definitely that's where I should be going. And that's a big accomplishment in a world where there's a monolith. There's like a massive monster that you have to somehow change that view for kids, and some amount of kids they have that, and that's a big accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, and it is a long haul. It's a long haul consideration.
Yeah.
Hey, so we should probably wrap this up because I know you've got this thing to do, and I don't want to be the reason why you meet any scorn later. But real quick, do you have anything you want to shout out? Any sort of new announcements or anything you want to get out there?
Oh yeah, Bellator 242 is tomorrow night, and myself, Raymond Daniels, who is a world champion karate fighter, full contact kickboxer, Glory, and he's a genius. And Ray's a good dude. Myself, Ray Daniels, and my friend Mallory Woods, who's a high-level karate guy as well, who runs sport fight platforms. The three of us are going to get together, watch Bellator, stream Bellator, the undercard, and kind of do a virtual hang tomorrow night.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where we're going to stream it. I think we'll be streaming it on Bellator, Twitter, and Facebook, but I'll have the details by tomorrow morning. I'll put up a post about it, but I'm super stoked. Ray's a genius, and Mallory's a really brilliant guy, and we're just going to hang out, have a couple of beers, and watch the fights and talk about them. And I was actually working on today being able to import a clip that they'll send me from the venue and draw an analysis on it really quick, and then drop it to Mallory so he can put it up in our live stream. And I think we'll pull that off.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that'd
That's
be really cool.
Well, definitely do the beers, but like here, you mentioned Doritos earlier. Stay away from those things. You know why?
I know.
Okay, check this out. Have you ever taken a Dorito and just lit it on fire? It burns like a candle. You can use, like, if you're ever like in a survival situation, get some Fritos or some Doritos and just put them in your pocket when you're about to go camping, because they are fire starter. There's so much saturated like oil in them. So it's crazy. Like, you can if you took a Frito right here and just lit it on fire, the flame would be up to here. And and you can hold it for like a couple of minutes. It's not like a...
Yeah, don't eat that shit. Nobody should be eating any of that.
It's really good. No, but anyway, thanks so much for the time, Robin. Joe, do you have any? You have an art exhibit that just went up today, right?
And actually, it'll go up. It's so weird to talk about any of these things, given the fact that people have to make a special appointment to go view them. But it's an art exhibition that'll actually open next Saturday night. And if people go to the Nashville Gallery Association's YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Central Time, a video will go live, and you'll be able to go essentially tour all these different gallery shows, and one of them will be the Red Arrow Gallery in East Nashville, where we're doing a show called Breathless, and it's a big group show. It's about 15 artists, and everybody's sort of responding to the challenges we've had here in Nashville specifically, which is we had a tornado this spring, followed by the pandemic, followed by our own version of the Black Lives Matter protests, which have now turned into an occupation of our legislative plaza, while activists are trying to get busts of Confederate soldiers out of the Capitol building. They've been there for like 42 days now. So we've got our own sort of local lens on all these things, and a bunch of artists are doing... There's painting, there's photography, textile stuff, installation art, just all sorts of different stuff is going on. And you'll be able to watch that video next Saturday night, Nashville Gallery Association YouTube channel.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put the link in the description. And Robin, look forward to this thing tomorrow night. That sounds like such a great idea. I love that.
It's gonna be fun.
Well, all right. So we're out. We'll hang in the green room here for just a quick second on the way out. But while I'm signing it, this whole internet machine off. But thanks for everybody for listening and for following and for sharing by word of mouth and goodwill the things that we're doing. And we're almost to 100 episodes. So
And we'll have Robin back for number 100 as well.
We're just going
to do it.
We're just going to call.
Let's do it.
We're just going to call every episode after the 100th one episode 100.
We'll just keep it like my mom and like when she turned 38.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. Well, I appreciate.
I want
everybody.
you guys to know I love you. I love you very much. And I appreciate
love you
your
guys.
time. Thank you for being here.
Love you.
All right. We'll see you in just a second, guys.